Hi, I'm Scott Wrighton. I'm Decatur's city manager, and it's our pleasure, city staff as well as mine, to bring you updates about what's going on in your city government. The City Council met for its regular City Council meeting on March the 7th. The media covered the stuff about drive-up windows, but there was a lot of other things that the mayor and City Council were dealing with at that meeting. One of them was a $3.7 million grant that we received from the government for additional hybrid buses to help our transit system modernize, as well as funds we will use for a bus barn. Many of our smaller transit vehicles sit outside, and so in order to reduce the deterioration to those vehicles, eliminate the possibility of vandalism or other losses, and to extend their life, we want to put them in better shelter. The transit system, really since the beginning of pandemic, has been the recipient of a substantially increased amount of federal and state funds. We expect this to continue, and the city is very active at trying to make sure that the Decatur transit system gets as much federal and state money as possible so as to keep the cost of operating down. I should mention as well that throughout most of the pandemic, and still this is the case, is that the cost of riding the Decatur bus is zero. It's free. So if you're feeling that pinch in your wallet because of the price of gas, the Decatur transit system and our bus system is always at your disposal, and you can ride those buses for free. One of the other items that the City Council talked about at their meeting was how to increase the tree inventory in the city. Having more trees is a quality of life issue, and to the extent that the city's tree canopy is improved, whether those trees are on city property or on private property or on park property or anywhere, it contributes to the overall canopy of the city. The city approved a contract for more than $140,000 to put trees in the Johns Hill area, compliments of the Buffett Foundation. Their generosity is continuing as we revitalize that neighborhood. A section of North 22nd Street, north of the Garfield Ferries Parkway overpass. The local Keep Decatur Beautiful organization received 2 donations from private parties to do a project up there, and that's being handled by the city. The money is from donations, but it's running through the city's contract. In addition, the city is also updating trees in the downtown area and installing some trees in several other locations around the city. In addition to that contract for trees, the City Council also adopted a program which is intended to incentivize private property owners to put trees in their front yards. One of the things we've discovered is that even though we'd like to put more trees in the street boulevard area, the area from right-of-way to right-of-way where the city owns the street and the adjoining berm area, the problem is that there's really not much room in the street when you consider that there's sidewalks and curbs that get sometimes heaved out by trees as they mature, and there's water lines and sewer lines and gas lines and power lines, and increasingly there's lines for broadband and other cabling. And so there's really not much room left in the right-of-way in many places. And so we have to say no more than we say yes to new trees in the right-of-way. But how the streetscape looks as you drive down the street is affected by trees, whether they're physically on city property or not. So the City Council's new policy says that if you, as a private property owner, go out and buy a tree and you install it in the front yard, say no more than 30 feet in from the right-of-way line, after it's installed, we'll reimburse either you, the property owner, or the company that did the installation for you 80% of the cost of that tree, up to $400. So that's a real incentive for people to put trees in their front yards, which not only adds value to the private property owner, but also improves the streetscape as you drive down the street. Families in Decatur are hurting. When gasoline goes to $5 a gallon, or it's over $4 now, but could go to $5 very, very rapidly. When inflation is taking a toll on everybody's family budget the way that it is. I mean, inflation has been driven by the federal government's monetary policies and spending more than they really have. And gas prices have been driven by the fact that the development of new fossil fuels here in the United States has been stunted. And so as a result, the cost of fuel is going up, especially when it's pressurized by events in Europe. So the City Council had a discussion. They didn't take any action, but they had a discussion about whether or not there's things we can be doing with our tax rates going forward to see if there's some relief we might be able to provide to citizens. So I don't have any answers for what the City Council has decided. It's something that they're going to be continuing to talk about and studying in the future. But please know that your mayor and city council are sensitive to these things, want to make sure that the rates that they charge for taxes and for fees and other charges that the city has cover our costs, make sure that we can stay up with the demands for services that we have, but also are still sensitive to the kind of what are called kitchen table issues that we face, every one of us in our households. One of the things that you have probably noticed downtown is that there are certain buildings that are in danger of falling down. They haven't been maintained properly, and one of the most visible examples of that was a building on North Martin Luther King called the Walrus Construction Building, and just north of the railroad tracks as you go north from El Dorado. This building collapsed several months ago, and for several weeks, Martin Luther King Drive was closed because the building is so close to the right-of-way that we were afraid that parts of the building would fall onto the street. We worked with the owner to make sure that she cleaned it up and tore down enough of the building so that we could reopen Martin Luther King Drive. But the demolition of that building has stalled. Now, the reasons for it stalling out are many and are varied, but that building is really is an example of the problems that the city faces with some of these older commercial buildings, some of them a century old or more, where the owners have not been good stewards of their buildings. But there are serious legal barriers that the city faces in trying to deal with some of these buildings. Yes, we can go after them and we can force condemnation in some cases, but when it comes to demolition, oftentimes the city is the one left holding the bag rather than the property owner. We can go after the property owner, but they isolate these buildings oftentimes in separate trusts and they park their assets somewhere else. So yes, we'll get the property at the end, but what good is it to the taxpayers of the city of Decatur who have to pay for all of this if we get a piece of land that's maybe worth $50,000, but we had to pay $400,000 in order to clean it up and remove all the debris. So we're looking at different ways that we can deal with some of these problems, because there are several buildings, not unlike the Walrus Manufacturing Building on Martin Luther King, that may have the same problem in their future. Finally, as was much reported in the media, the City Council made a decision to require that those liquor establishments that have a drive-up window or a walk-up window or any other kind of a window to the outside where the actual transaction for purchasing alcoholic beverages takes place, that beginning July 1st, it's not immediate that it goes into effect, but beginning July 1st, they'll have to close those windows after 10 o'clock. There was much debate about this because the City Council acknowledged that drive-up windows can be very useful, especially to deal with staffing issues. It's not a bad social distancing strategy. But after about 10 or 11 o'clock, these windows contribute to, we believe, the increase in DUIs that happen after that time, increases in congregations of people around these windows and in parties and disturbances that result in the police being called, as well as cases of illegal transportation of alcohol. So the City Council decided they would try this as a measure to reduce some of these police incidents, especially going into the summer months. Please know that this amendment that was adopted by the City Council doesn't mean that these liquor establishments have to shut down at 10 o'clock. It doesn't mean that at all. They'll still be open as late as they've always been, but after 10 o'clock, you'll have to go into the store and make these purchases. You won't be able to make the purchases at the window. Late at night, sometimes it's hard for establishment owners to see the patrons, harder to know if they're underage and so forth. And so this helps with many different issues related to police enforcement involving alcohol. But like similar measures, the City Council will be revisiting it to see how effective it was, decide whether or not they should keep it or if they should modify it in the future. So like with many other items, we value your feedback. Thanks again for tuning into this video, and I look forward to bringing you more updates in the weeks ahead.